Welcome to Marrow Masters, sponsored by the National Bone Marrow Transplant Link, Insight Corporation, and our esteemed Link partners. The National Bone Marrow Transplant Link, established in 1992, strives to help patients, caregivers, and families cope with the psychosocial challenges of bone marrow and stem cell transplants from diagnosis through survivorship. This season of Marrow Masters focuses on chronic graft-versus-host disease, or GvHD. Here's your host, Executive Director of the NBMT Link, Peggy Burkhart.
Welcome to Marrow Masters. Today, Jennifer Gillette will talk about thriving with chronic graft-versus-host disease after transplant. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks, Peggy.
Jennifer is the staff social worker at the National Bone Marrow Transplant Link and provides counseling at a private practice in Shelby Township, Michigan. She received her Master of Social Work degree from Wayne State University. Jennifer has spent over 20 years leading the psychosocial support programs for oncology at Providence hospitals, helping patients cope with cancer. She provides private counseling, leads support groups, assists with educating patients, develops patient programming, has assisted with research projects, and led the clinic social service programs for those without insurance or dealing with the economic crisis of cancer. At NBMT Link, Jennifer is available to assist those with emotional support, resources, and assist with supportive programming. Jennifer, what exactly is thriving with chronic GvHD after transplant?
One of the ways I thought of describing it today is thriving to find how to live the best version of you, making the best with what your body can do after transplant, finding ways to cope or minimize the emotional issues that you're dealing with, and finding ways to reconnect with the world around you and establishing a renewed meaning and purpose for your life. Now, I want to make sure when we're talking about this today that we don't minimize this and make it sound like this is an easy thing to get to. Thriving is a slow process, just like as your body heals slowly after transplant, it takes time for the soul to heal as well. I would imagine looking at it like a ground zero to living again, and there's no one size fits all. This can be a very scary experience. It's a personal crisis for many people. I know we had one speaker recently who referred to thriving in the sense of making it through a personal earthquake. She had talked about how the big one hit, but you're thinking about when's the next aftershock coming and is it going to be worse? And so she talked about having to increase a tolerance for the unknown. And we also discussed how exhausting this process can be. It is physically exhausting, spiritually, emotionally, socially exhausting. And there's consistent pressure to make a lot of quick decisions that can be life-altering. So there's a lot of pressure there. There's also grief. People that go through a cancer diagnosis might lose parts of their body. They might lose identity, like maybe careers. There might be people in their life that haven't been able to stand beside them through this for whatever reason. So there might be some relationship changes, a sense of identity. Maybe they found themselves being identified by the career that they had gone into that they can no longer do. So there's a lot of losses, and learning how to transition through those and being patient with yourself during that process is going to help you thrive. Many survivors that you talk to say that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And thriving is walking in the right direction and growing. Another example here of thriving, we had a wonderful speaker recently, Rhonda, who just is such an inspiration. And I love how she put it that every day she just would look for a way to be a little stronger. For example, physically, she was saying that she noticed in the beginning stages, if she could sit in the chair in the hospital room versus her bed, she felt a little stronger, even if all she could do was a few minutes a day. So she would just look for ways to push herself just to be a little bit stronger. And so really that's what thriving is. And I want to make sure everybody knows today too that the tips that we share, these are all things that we have heard from other survivors. They are our best teachers. And so we just wanted to share some of these tips today.
Jennifer, what are some of the symptoms that make it hard to thrive?
Well, first of all, I think it's important that we remember before someone comes to a cancer journey, they already have things on their plate. There might be people that have gone through a divorce and are parenting, or maybe they're a single parent, or maybe they're going through financial strains. And so all those things that you bring with you are part of the things that get magnified when you go through a cancer journey. There's also issues such as energy. I know a lot of people talk to us about energy issues. Their cells are trying to recover. They're trying to regrow. Blood levels can change, and they're just trying to heal. That takes a lot of energy from the body. It's not exactly the same, but think about when you have the flu and your body's trying to recover. It takes all that energy from other parts of how you function for your body to heal itself. And so the same kinds of things are happening in someone trying to heal from a transplant, but to a higher degree. There's also chemo, which affects how the body is running. And chronic graft versus host disease, of course, is a disease of its own that causes a lot of challenges for people. And then body changes. There's also issues such as relationships. When someone's going through a cancer journey, the roles in a relationship can change from someone becomes a caregiver and someone needs to depend more on their partner, so that equality has shifted. And that could be challenging for a couple to overcome. There's also support. Again, there's some people that you think are going to stand by you, but maybe they don't have the emotional capacity to do so. That can make it challenging to thrive when people that have been your supports aren't there, even though there's also people that can pop up that you least expected to. But that can make it a challenge. Also, your attitude, if there's some depression, having hope and goals and a sense that you can overcome is something that's important. And if that's a hard thing for you to visualize, that will be a challenge. Again, identity confusion, a sense of emptiness or lack of interest. Another one is sleep disorders. We hear in transplant patients that 50% have sleep disorders after going through a transplant. And when you have a sleep disorder, not only can that increase your fatigue, but it can also increase your depression. And then it also can affect your immune system when you're not sleeping properly. There's also digestive issues, pain, and again, getting to the emotional aspect. The emotional aspect is just as hard as the physical one, many patients will tell us. And I know in some of my support groups in the past, we've talked about ways that they were coping, and about 75% of them say that they end up on an antidepressant just because the depression became overwhelming. And so those kinds of things can be very challenging, as well as, of course, prognosis, how bad your symptoms are or how well they're managed, the type of transplant you go through, the extent of your chronic graft versus host disease, and genetic tendencies towards depression or anxiety.
Many survivors I talk to say how hard it is to manage the fatigue. What strategies do you think could help the most?
Well, I've heard a lot of good ones from a lot of the people that volunteer for us as peer mentors. It's definitely, I know, one of the hardest symptoms people deal with. Some patients have told us, though, that they've developed some strategies that seem to help a lot. However, again, I want to kind of just start this by saying the earlier on that you are in your transplant journey, it's going to take time. It takes at least a year to figure out how your body is healing from something like this. So don't feel judged when you hear these. These are examples that as time goes on, people have really said could help. So one is learning what time of day your body's best performance time is. If you find that later in the afternoon, your body seems to be the most viable, make your appointments for later in the afternoon. You want to set yourself up for success and what you need to do. Also try to plan ahead for outings. If you're going to be out and you know your stamina's not really good, maybe having a little rolling something with you where you can put a little chair in it if there's not going to be places to sit or things like that. Also avoiding disorganization. Chemo brain is alive and well, and it's very easy to get foggy thinking. So making lists and helping yourself to stay on top of things is just going to help you to run more efficiently. Also, breaking tasks into smaller pieces when possible and do what you can when you can. Also, on that note, learning how to delegate if you can. That's not always easy for everybody, but asking for help when you need it is a great thing. Learning to say no is also important. For example, maybe you are really missing connecting with people and you're scared to schedule any time with friends because you don't want to cancel on them. But if you say ahead of time, right now, I feel like I have enough energy to visit with you, but if I need to call you that day and let you know if I can't, it's not personal. It's just, this is what my body can do right now. So doing something like that, or resting when your body says to. I know a lot of our survivors have shared that if they push themselves too hard, they've learned where that line is, where if they push it too hard the next day or two, they're useless. And so figuring out where that line is for you and not crossing it. Also important to the fatigue discussion is exercise and diet. We know that trying to walk when you can is something that can assist with fatigue. And maybe it's just walking around your hospital room or trying to do a lap on the hospital floor, but trying to every day just get a little stronger and try to just do what you can. I know we have one survivor, Lou, who is another great inspiration, who shared with us that he found an app where some big companies will donate to charities of your choice based on your steps. So if you're thinking it's even beyond your own self, that you're helping somebody else with your steps, maybe that'll help you with your motivation. We also had a great lunch and learn in January about nutrition, which of course people can key into, but I know she had mentioned how important it is to limit sugar and to reduce red meat and alcohol and processed foods for optimizing your health, as well as the importance of protein and vitamins A, B, C, D, E, zinc, and iron, because all of those things help with your cells as they rebuild themselves and help your immune function and just set your body up for success. Another thing when it comes to fatigue is there's also some great research coming out on light therapy. I know we're having a lunch and learn next month on that as well, talking about how that can help people. So that's something you could discuss with your physician. Again, talking about the depression component, if that is increasing a feeling of fatigue in you, you could talk to your doctor about trying an antidepressant and seeing if that seems to help with your overall energy. Reprioritizing, there's only so much energy you have for the day, and it's cut down significantly compared to what it used to be. So if you take the time to say, what's the most important thing for me to do that day, prioritizing that and then putting the other things kind of on the back burner is going to help. Just a few more suggestions here because we've heard a lot of great ones. Another one, as hard as this might sound, is avoiding naps during the day. And if you must, trying to make it maybe like a cat nap for 10 minutes or something. Because if you are napping too much during the day, that can affect your sleep cycle. And also, as far as stimulating things that can keep you up, if you do your exercise in the AM, it's less likely to be stimulating in the PM, keeping you up. We had one professional also share with us how caffeine takes about 15 hours to get out of your system. So if you're going to have caffeine, having it in the morning might be easier for some of us than others, as I do love caffeine and respect that need in others. But these are just some ideas that some of our survivors, as well as great speakers, have shared with us in the past.
Those are great tips, Jen. Thank you. What about the mental and emotional fatigue? Are there any specific strategies that patients have shared with you?
Absolutely. Our survivors, as well as some of our great speakers, have given us some great ideas. Because as we have said earlier, this is something that affects all parts of a person. Their physical, their spiritual, emotional, social, psychological. This is a battle for all of that. And so when it comes to dealing with the mental and emotional fatigue, one is to have a realistic expectation. Imagine if you lost a loved one, you would have a grieving process that you wouldn't be done in a week. And there are parts of yourself that are changing and parts of yourself that maybe you lost. And so as that process happens, and again, it's a process, You have to be patient with yourself and give yourself time to adapt. You have to accept you can only do your best and push yourself to go stronger in one way, daily perhaps, but to not be expecting that you're just going to bounce back. You can't control what is happening, but you get to choose how you handle it. So some of this is learning how to do mental shifts. For example, you can't stop fatigue, but how can you minimize its effect on your life? Communicating openly is something that helps a lot of people. Some people feel that if they shelter their loved ones from talking about what they're really feeling, that's going to somehow protect them. But one, you need ways to release your emotions. Two, it also can isolate you, and it might feel hard for your loved ones to connect with you as well and share what they're going through. Another thing that can be helpful is a therapeutic relationship. And of course, with this, it's like having the right shoes. There's a lot of different ways to get that kind of relationship, whether it's asking the social worker at your center if they have good recommendations. I recommend if you are going to get a counselor, finding someone that specializes in oncology, just because I think they'll have a better understanding of what you're going through. Or maybe it's going to be a pastor, or maybe even just a dear friend, but having someone that you can really share what you're thinking. I know we have several survivors who say focus on the positive, challenge your negative mindsets, and hold on to those stories of hope and make goals for yourself still, and focus on the progress that you're making. Those are all things that you can do to try to help stay positive. But again, it's a mental shift. It doesn't mean you're just going to be happy every minute. That's not realistic. But we had one person who said, instead of focusing and saying, oh, well, I'm a burden, I'm a blessing. And people are investing in me getting through this. So again, it's a shift. Realizing that sometimes you need outside help is important. Like we have some couples who really struggle with the challenges that go along and all the transitions that happen in their relationship. So they might love each other with all their heart, but having the skills to be able to navigate some of these waters can be helpful. Another is running your own ship, finding ways to control what is within your reach. I have a story of a woman who I know she was really feeling down, that she didn't feel like she was the mother that she wanted to be. And when I asked her, I said, what are some of the things that make you feel like you're just not meeting your expectations as a mother? And she said, well, I always did my kids' laundry and I would put it in their rooms, and that just made me feel like I was taking care of them. And now she was having a hard time walking. And so with a little bit of creativity, we ended up having her husband get a cart for her where she could have first floor laundry and use that cart to get it to the couch. And even if it took her all day to make that process work, having it folded on the couch helped her feel more like the mom she wanted to be, and really did a lot for her emotionally. So finding ways to reclaim what you can on what's important to you. Another coping tip is allowing yourself to have meltdowns. If you need a pity party, as some of our survivors say, let yourself have a pity party. It's okay. There's actually a study that's been done with onions comparing tears from emotions and from cutting onions. And there's actually an enzyme that's present when there's emotions involved. And so that has let clinicians know there's something that we haven't quite figured out yet, but it's like a detox for your body when you let those tears out. So if you need a moment, let them out.
That's so interesting, Jen. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Spirituality, whatever that is for you, is something that is also key for a lot of people. In all the years I've met with people, this is a time for you to dig deep and see what that meaning is to you. And for some people, it might be a faith system, maybe reading your Bible, having a scripture verse that brings you peace. Other people, it might be meditation, but allowing that spiritual part of yourself to be awakened on this journey can be very helpful. There's also marking your progress. We had one great survivor, Jen, who told us how she used to mark like where she was at. So, sometimes just like watching your kids grow, I see my kids and I I think they're the same size all the time. And then I see someone a year later who's like, oh, they grow a foot. When you see with your own progress, if you write it down like, oh, well, I couldn't get up the stairs last week, but wow, look at here I am getting up there. Those kinds of things can just remind you are healing, even if it's slower than what you would like. Another great tip is accepting support. If I had a nickel for every time someone came to my office and said, well, I'm not good at that. This is a time to learn to be open to that, because that is something that is really going to help you through this. And it also can help with you in that sense of isolation as you're healing. I have one woman who started actually scrapbooking the support she received. And she would put like, oh, someone sent her flowers or a card or a kind word, and she would put it in that book. And on those days where maybe she felt like nobody cared and that she was all alone, she would open that book and remind herself that just because maybe today something big didn't happen, there's a lot of people loving her and caring for her and thinking of her through this journey. There's also having a reality check, as one person had shared with us. Again, kind of trying to reclaim what you can of things that are important to you, but finding a realistic way to incorporate that in your life. We have one gentleman who shared a love of golf with us. He used to love to just do the 18 holes, but after his transplant, that was something that just didn't come back, or at least not fully right away. And so he got a very part-time job at the golf course and was able to still chat the game and be out there and see friends and things like that. So he still got to reclaim parts of that golf life that he loved. Another wonderful inspiration from one of our survivors was to have a life list, to write down things that you want to do, kind of like the bucket list idea, but it challenges yourself. One of our survivors, after she went through this experience, wanted to run a marathon in each state to raise money for cancer. And she's finishing her last state this June. And so it gave her something to look forward to. It helped her to heal and make herself stronger. And she also wanted to pay it forward to help other cancer survivors. Another idea is having a gratitude list. You know, it's very easy for us to focus on things that are difficult to deal with. But when we have our focus there, it's also easy to forget just really how blessed we are. Whether it be, you know, I'm thankful for a husband who stands beside me, or I'm thankful that I have a roof over my head. You know, challenging yourself to keep adding new things to that list. Could be, I'm even thankful for lights in the room, so I'm not doing this podcast in the dark. There's so many things that we can be thankful for, but we have to be aware of them. And it just helps pull you out of a place of things that just aren't working. Routines can be helpful. Just getting yourself used to doing things over and over can make it a little easier to accomplish them. Blogging, again, it's another way to let some of those emotions out and share your experience. I know there's websites like Caring Bridge that if perhaps you don't want to tell your story 50 times, but people can all read it in one spot, and it's a great way to communicate. And getting out is also another thing many people tell us. I know there's a lot of restrictions, and it's important to try to follow all the things your doctor tells you to do, but it can just make you batty if you're home too much. And so finding ways to get out, even if you need to wear a mask and be outdoors, finding a way to just get out of those walls can be great for your spirits. And a couple more here. Another suggestion was finding your passion. There's another great peer, David, who has been an inspiration to us here at the Link. And he was sharing how he was in the corporate world and everything he was doing before this, but he really had a passion for nutrition and wellness. So after he went through this, he left the big corporate world, and now he helps with a program, a series program in California, where they teach cancer patients about healthy eating and how to best maximize their wellness, and they help with food for people. Also, one of my recommendations is the Link has some great lunch and learns and webinars and great books and things on our site too, that if there's a particular topic that you're struggling with, I would encourage you to reach out and see if we have something specifically on our site for you, because we've had a lot of great, wise speakers known around the country for their expertise that have shared with us. So those are some of the suggestions.
Those are terrific. And knowing many of the people that you're speaking of, I'm just smiling here because they really have come so far and they really enrich our lives and our mission by sharing their honesty and what all of this means for them. So thank you. I wanted to ask about the incredible caregivers. They sometimes are forgotten. How can they thrive?
Well, that's a great question. I know a lot of times we in the health community don't always remember those caregivers, and they're really secondary survivors. They play nurse, they play messenger, they're an advocate, a spirit booster. They take over a lot of the chores. Looking at this as a we experience and how you as a team can do well is going to help everybody in your home thrive more. One thing is, again, to make sure that you're both open and honest with each other, because this is just going to help you navigate this process. So that constant communication. One important thing to remember is there's a lot of frustration as you go through this. So trying to find ways to communicate respectfully with each other and not taking out all the emotions on each other is also important. One thing I recommend with people is using I statements. They're less attacking. So if there is a frustration that you're trying to share, saying, I then feel about this, what I'd really like to try or do is this. Instead of, well, you, pretty much anytime you start a sentence with you, it's usually not going to be received greatly. So it can just lead to defensiveness. So really trying to find some techniques, and again, having a therapeutic person if you're struggling in that area to maybe help you smooth out those bumps. It's also important for caregivers to remember that caregivers need caregivers. A village is needed to support people. The caregiver, if they try to take everything on themselves, is going to be running on fumes very quickly. So if they can take care of themselves and allow themselves to get some outside help, that's going to help them overall to be in that marathon mindset. It's also, as a caregiver, holding on to stories of hope as well. There's going to be days where maybe the caregiver might feel a meltdown or feel discouraged. And meltdown is not a sign of weakness. Meltdown is just detox. And trying to make everything about this as comfortable as possible. If you're spending a lot of time at the hospital, not only making sure that the room is comfortable for the person going through it, but what kinds of things make you comfortable too? I know times in my own life when I've been in the caregiver role, I don't always buy Starbucks. It's expensive, even though I love it dearly. But when I would be making hospital trips for my father, every time I went, I got myself a caramel macchiato, and that was my way of patting myself on the back. So those little smiles can go a long way. We also had some great advice from one of our caregivers, Marcella, another one of my inspirations, who talked about having a motivational statement. It was so cute. Her and her husband, the song from one of the Christmas specials, put one foot in front of the other. When he would be getting transfusions or getting a variety of other things, they would sing their little song to each other about putting one foot in front of the other. And so finding a mantra, or again, if it's your spirituality, like as a Christian, there's a scripture that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. If you're a Christian, that is something that you could repeat to yourself, but it's a matter of finding what works for you and what's going to give you strength to remember to keep going on. So the highlight of all of this is you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. A great quote from Joseph Goldstein. The key to thriving is it's learning persistence, patience, and having hope, and mixing it all together to find the best version of you.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Jennifer. This was terrific.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. And just a reminder to anyone listening to this that we are here. We're a phone call and an email away, and we're here to support you through this.
This has been the Marrow Masters Podcast. Feel free to share this episode via social media, text, or email. To hear more, subscribe for free to Marrow Masters in your favorite podcast app. To learn more about graft versus host disease and the resources available to patients and caregivers, check out the National Bone Marrow Transplant link at nbmtlink.org. That's nbmtlink.org, or just tap the link below in the show notes.